that the agenda for the session is scalable e-commerce workflows for budding sellers. Now, this is a session that if you are a hustler, if you are starting out in e-commerce or are thinking of scaling up, this is a session for you. For this session, we have domain experts from Upriver, Finovate Capital, Nimbus Post, and Powerhouse 91. It's an extraordinary panelist, and we're going to be hosting this session along with my very dear colleague, Mr. Mayur. Mayur is here, our enterprise solution expert. Hi, Mayur.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you once again to all the panelists of session 5. I trust the session was as knowledgeable and enlightening like our yesterday's 4 value-packed sessions. And I'm excited to be a part of this session 6. As Anubhav already mentioned, the topic of this session would be scalable e-commerce workflows for budding sellers. And I'll be the moderator for this session. So as Anubhav already mentioned, audiences who are the budding entrepreneurs who are thinking of scaling up their business and they don't know exactly how to do it. And this is the session which is curated for you. So the format of this session would be ask me anything. So you can ask your questions and you can put up on the Q&A session here. So without wasting time, I would like to welcome all the 4 panelists of this session. Mr. Bakar Naqvi from Upriver, Mr. Aljo Joseph from Finovate, Mr. Yash from Nimbus Post, and Mr. Aqib Mohammed from Powerhouse 91. So I would request to start with Mr. Bakar to introduce and talk about the company.
Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be a part of this panel. I very, very knowledgeable panelists here. Just to give a brief introduction about Upriver. Upriver is a multi-marketplace account management and sales acceleration agency. We work across 30+ marketplaces across the globe with almost 80 brand partners to manage their account and help them accelerate their sales, not just in India, but across global platforms. We use various AI, artificial intelligence-based technologies to manage and accelerate accounts across multiple categories: fashion, lifestyle, food and grocery, personal care, electricals, and so on. I'm happy to share my experiences, and I've been into consumer and retail for 20+ years. I've managed many brands in the retail and e-commerce structure. So happy to share my experiences on how one can launch their brand on the online marketplaces and grow their business there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bakar. Now I would request Mr. Aljo Joseph to introduce and about your company as well.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It was exciting listening to the earlier panel. Just as a background, I'm the co-founder and chief business officer at Finovate Capital. Finovate Capital, we specialize in affinity finance. What that means is unless you're associated with a particular platform and there is transactions that you have with that particular platform and a history of pattern with that, we will not be able to finance you directly, right, as a seller or anyone else in the e-commerce ecosystem. So we are all about partnerships. We are all about using the data that you build or the history that you build to make finance, first of all, available, because once we carve out the cohorts, we ensure that the approval rates are fairly high. And also about making sure that the experience, in case you do not get the finance, is handled correctly. So I think that's largely what we specialize in. So as a company, we partner with about 22 lenders in the Indian ecosystem, of whom there are 12 strategic lenders. So that essentially means that we know exactly how the credit works and the approval mechanism also works. And we specialize in creating embedded finance experiences. What that basically means is people don't need to come to our platforms. We can put a button right into the platform that you transact with, from where you can apply and avail credit limits. So excited about interacting with the other panelists and learning from them as well on this journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're excited too. Mr. Yash, over to you if you can introduce and talk about your company.
Sure, Mayur. So good afternoon, everybody. This side is Yash. I'm co-founder and CEO of Nimbus Post. We are a logistics automation and a tech platform. On the one side, we work with very smaller brands and businesses who are looking to jumpstart into D2C space and jumpstarting their business at a very small scale. We help them to automate their business, you could say. So it's not just about logistics. The journey starts from order filtration. The journey starts from how to manage your call center team, scale your remote call center people, and and do the order verification, going ahead to like choosing right courier partners, then going ahead to the right analytics, where to ship, where not to ship. So we are more or less an end-to-end logistics platform for helping with small businesses to scale. On the other side, we are a technology company. We have been working with few of the biggest enterprise in India and globally. We have been powering their end-to-end tech stack, you could say. That could be like powering the whole hyperlocal ecosystem, powering the whole, you could say, end-to-end customer experience and customer journey, scaling at a very, with some of the brands who have been scaling at a very good numbers. So we are more towards logistics and tech and automation to like help you to end-to-end business.
Great. Thank you. Over to you, Aqib Mohammed.
Thanks, Mayur. First of all, really excited to be here and learn from the fellow panelists as well as hopefully the audience members as well. Just to give a brief background about myself, I am the co-founder of Powerhouse 91. We are an e-commerce roll-up company. So we basically buy e-commerce brands. We acquire the brands from the brand owners, give them a decent enough financial exit, and then we scale them up significantly from that point. Just to sort of give a brief summary of my own background before this as well. I started my career at Snapdeal, have been in e-commerce for about 7 years now, across technology, product, and as a seller as well. In fact, 3 years ago, I went through the journey of starting my own consumer brand from 0 to 1 by the name of Aza in feminine hygiene category. And, through this journey, while building Aza, realized that, this journey is similar to a lot of all of us e-commerce sellers, regardless of the category. And that's how Powerhouse 91 came into the picture as well, where we are doing just that, but at a much larger scale across different categories and across dozens of brands. So yeah, that's about me.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to know about the journey you had so far. Okay, let's begin the session then. So to start with, I would like to ask Mr. Bakar, Upriver being a marketplace sales accelerator or online sales accelerator for all the budding sellers, what would be that first step to launch a brand or a business on marketplaces?
So I think the most important first step is to plan for the launch. I see so many sellers who come to the marketplace without even a fair understanding of how the marketplaces work, what are the charges, the structures, and after they have started selling and have sold a bit, then when Amazon sends their monthly ledger of accounts and expenses, then they say, okay, itne kam paise mujhe mile, kyun? Mere to samajh mein nahi aaya ki itne kyun, matlab I was expecting X and I've got 0.2X. So I think I would say first of all, understand your category, create a detailed structure of how you want to operate in that. Understand if there is a market in your category and what are the competitors doing, what is the price benchmark, what is the product benchmark, is your product adequately or competitively priced. Do all that analysis. Also evaluate top selling products. Understand ki market mein kya bik raha hai aur kya nahi bik raha hai. Everything, a lot of products may or may not be saleable in each channel. Each channel is built for a certain kind of market. For example, if you look at high fashion or you look at, I would say, fashionable apparel, Myntra is the platform to be on. I mean, in general, I'm not talking of the outliers, but in general, if you go with a high fashion product at a premium pricing on Flipkart, your chances of sales are much lesser than what it is on a Myntra. So first, understand the platform on which you want to operate, understand the dynamics of that platform. And also, I think very important is for you, because there's so much clutter in the market in so many categories. So either you find a niche or you create a storyline or a USP for your product. आपके product को क्यों बिकना चाहिए? Otherwise, all apparel look the same. कोई green check है, कोई red check है. So how does it matter? So create a USP for a product. Tell your story why your product should sell. If you are a premium seller, then just like a store, I mean, you won't go and buy a Mercedes from a Maruti showroom. Similar, जब आप अगर एक प्रीमियम प्रोडक्ट को बेच रहे हैं तो आपके सारे जो प्रोडक्ट डिस्क्रिप्शन हैं, वीडियोस हैं, जो आपके ब्रांड एसेट्स हैं, वो वैसे ही मैचिंग होने चाहिए, तभी आप बेच पाएंगे. And as I said, so that's the planning part of it. Secondly, it's also very important to understand the economic model. आपके प्रोडक्ट में कितने क्या मार्जिन्स हैं, क्या लॉजिस्टिक्स कॉस्ट हैं, कितने रिटर्न्स आते हैं. Understand and factor all of that. Also understand that marketing is an essential part of your launch phase. So what would be your marketing cost? If you can talk to a few sellers who are in the category, if you can connect with them, talk to, if possible, the category team at the marketplaces. Understand कि आपको 15% marketing चाहिए या शुरू में आपको 50% marketing चाहिए, because each category has its own dynamics. So understand that and then create your unit economic model and see whether you are commercially feasible to sell or not. Otherwise, आप 100 रुपए का बेच के हो सकता है आपको 20 रुपए मिलने और आपके प्रोडक्ट की कॉस्ट ही 50 है. So obviously it doesn't make sense for you, or you need to have a plan that by doing these 5 things over the next 3 months, I will become profitable. So I think that's that. Lastly, I would say it is very important to do dry runs. एक बार आप live हो जाते हैं, then it becomes very difficult for you, because then obviously you are in the run. If there are orders and you're not able to supply, you may even get blacklisted for a few days by Amazon because you're breaching the SLAs. So do a dry run, see that your supply chain, see that your warehousing, your shipment, logistics partners are all geared to doing so. I mean, I've had sellers जो they are operating from some I would say industrial areas, and after they started selling, they understood कि वो logistics partner तो वहाँ पे 3 दिन में एक ही बार आता है, and obviously you can't do pretty much anything. Now, if you would have the dry run before, maybe you have had some alternative arrangements. I mean, people on Amazon, I think one of the critical things is, specifically if you talk of Amazon, Flipkart, I think one of the biggest metrics is how quickly can you supply. Most of these platforms, the biggest metrics of operation is customer delight. So अगर आप 4 दिन की डिलीवरी, 1 हफ्ते की डिलीवरी है, तो your chances of sale are very, very small as compared to a 1 or 2 day delivery. So do test all of these things, see how it will work to you, not just on a planning level, but do a dry run. Try out, I mean, you might need to some softwares like Unicommerce. Even though these platforms, the Amazon itself and as well as these platforms that you use are fairly simple to use, but get a training done because your team might be new. So all of these things are very important. Just, I mean, I would say prepare well before you enter, rather than entering and doing trials and errors, because the cost of that trial and error could be, 1, monetarily high, 2, you can even get blacklisted. So I think that's the first step to launching a brand.
Completely agree. And it was a great insight to all the budding sellers. Now that we've got an understanding and input from you about the marketplace management, moving on to Mr. Aljo. So Finovate being the financial advisor and being the financial planner, how Finovate can help these budding sellers, and how will working capital finance help this e-commerce platform to grow their business?
So I mean, just to kind of put that into context, I mean, we're not a financial planner, right? And what we help with the platforms per se is the fact that so assuming. So what's the most important thing for a platform, right? So you've got all these customers that are transacting with you.
Right.
As and when tomorrow your service becomes slightly more commoditized, there are more competition, etc. Why should a customer choose you over anyone else? And we do believe that the greatest leveler in this entire conversation is finance, right? So it is not about just randomly giving credit in the market. There has to be basis on which you give credit, right? Like for instance, not every and it was extremely insightful listening to Bakar earlier, and even he'll agree, right, saying that not every category in e-commerce is financial, right? So you got to pick your battles. You need to understand who do you kind of give a limit to, and you give a limit with an end use purpose, right? Like for instance, if you're a platform and you're a logistics provider or you're a warehousing provider, you give them a certain limit which they can use to avail your service, right? And that creates the right level of stickiness with you, right? As a service provider, and that is what we facilitate. So largely, why we're good at this is because we know exactly what the lenders look at, right? So when platforms try and do this on their own, the lenders and platforms live in 2 separate universes, right? So basically, the experience that most platforms have had is that they've gone and had conversations with multiple lenders, and ultimately, after some time, the ecosystem stops taking them very seriously. So what we ensure is that while the platform is built itself, it is built from the fundamentals of lending already that are built in. That means that the fields that the lender will need are already captured upfront. Now, as a consumer, what we can help you do is clearly, or what we would recommend is start building your history with a particular platform that you're working with, right? Because no platform is going to give a credit in the future to anyone who's just worked with them once, right? And now you're hoping that the platform that you work with also will offer credit at some point, right? So essentially, once you've got the track record and history, you become financeable. So that's largely the role that we play in the entire ecosystem. One is retention as a platform, retention of your customers. The other part is if you want the customer to grow business with you and you know they're using competitive platforms, etc., we will keep increasing the credit limit in a very disciplined and financially prudent manner so that we move more business over to you, right? Over a period of time with that particular supplier, whoever is selling over the platform, right? And that's why platforms like Unicommerce are invaluable, right? Because they provide a complete view on the entire over the entire channel, all the way from the customer paying to collection. So it is the age of collaboration, and increasingly people who aggregate the entire chain, right, to factor in for the returns, factor in for the cash on delivery, provide a clear view of categories that work, do not work, are the people who are going to facilitate lending in the future. And over a period of time, the whole idea would be is once you're able to build this sort of history, it is only then that you can then move to a pre-shipment financing model for suppliers and for select categories, right? Not for everyone. So I think the future is very exciting. And we are excited about partnering with all the platforms that are out there in the e-commerce space to make this happen. I hope that was helpful.
Yes, sir, that was very, very helpful. Now that we have some input on the marketplace management and on the financial services, now logistics is also an integral part of the e-commerce business. So I will move on to the next question, that is to Mr. Yash Kumar. So I understand that Nimbus Post is not just a shipping aggregator. You are a tech-enabled platform, delivery platform. So as per you, how can one can scale their entire the tech for a better optimization of their e-commerce business?
Sure, Mayur. Yeah. So so when I started my journey, I started with different sections, and even I have been on both sides of a table. First, I started my journey as being a seller, and then I turned back the table and I came to logistics end. So one of the things I believe is a lot of brands start while they're hustling, they don't focus on tech. People don't look technology or investing on technology at initial stage. And what I've seen is investing in technology is something that's like, if you really want to scale up your brand, scale up your business, if you don't have right tech and tools in place, you can never scale your business. So what I believe is the tech stack is very, very important. So things start from, if I talk about from a marketing angle, you need the right marketing automation tools, you need right PPC management tools, you need to go to certain platforms and use it. Once you go ahead, you need solutions like Unicommerce, and you need to go to, you should be using some multi-channel solution from day one. If you have a vision towards taking your brand towards multi-channel, you should go with such solutions. So one of the problem brands and all D2C brands we have seen is at certain brands who scale up, and they got they scale up the volume, then their customer escalations stuck up, they get so much queries, their brand value goes at the stake, and they end up losing their whole brand value and everything, just losing up, not investing in tech or using right tools. So my suggestion to all D2C brands or any e-commerce business who's been scaling up, it may take you 1 or 2 months to now tech is not something you need to invest huge or set up a development team or tech team to build it. There are plug and play solutions available for everything into the Indian market now. There are solutions for marketing automation, you could use tools like AdYogi. For multi-channel, you use Unicommerce. For logistics, you use platforms like us, or you use some automation platforms like Logicy and others. EasyShip, Logicy and others. For a customer experience, there are platforms too. So it's just a plug and play solution that those are being readily available for every stage of your business. So my suggestion to all the brands is everybody should be focusing or spending time on tech while building the business, because once you have right tech in place, right tools in place, and when you connect all those tools, you could map up a single user journey. As of now, a lot of problem the brands faces, nobody is able to map up an end-to-end journey. They have been spending somewhere, they have been shipping from somewhere, they have been They have been selling on marketplaces from different tools, and nobody is able to map up the actual CAC or actual what's the customer acquisition CAC cost, what they have been bearing up, what all things, where they're losing up a customer, and they're not able to check up a CAC curve and all those things. And all these brands later realizes it, then they spend on tech, and that's one of the major reasons why it took some time, while scaling, it takes some time for brands to scale, because they spend a year or certain times for upgrading themselves and learning themselves. So my belief is being like, if somebody have a vision or somebody is looking to scale their D2C brand, they should start investing on tech platform, using all different platforms from day one, so that over the period of time they achieve a complete integrated journey, and they could connect all dots and focus on business rather than focusing on solving such problems and operations up there.
Mayur, can I just add to what Yash is saying?
Sure, Mr. Bagar. Yeah.
So I very, very aptly put, Yash. I think, so Amazon's statistics, for example, I'm just taking the example of Amazon, is that they're currently about 9 lakh sellers across multiple categories, out of which, if you count how many sellers are able to sell more than 1 crore, there are only, and Aqib would know more statistics in a better format because he looks at larger players for acquisitions.
Right.
The number of players who are selling more than 1 crore are only a few thousands. What differentiates between a seller who sells more than 1 crore versus more other lakhs of players who are not even there? I think most people think that the end of their activity when it comes to selling online is to list their products. I think that's a complete myth. Picture वहीं से ही शुरू होती है. Listing तो hygiene है. आप एक स्कूल में आपने एडमिशन ले लिया, आप ग्रेजुएट नहीं हो गए. पढ़ाई तो वहां से ही शुरू होती है. तो जब तक आप प्लेटफॉर्म पे लिस्ट हो गए, मतलब अब आपका काम शुरू हुआ. And that is where the use of all the various tools and understanding of the marketplace comes in. Until you are able to use the tools available, you will not be able to do anything much, or you will do everything very, very inefficiently. Today, the online selling is largely about how you are able to navigate through technology, and all those tools are, I mean, they're not an investment today. You are a user, just like we used to use a calculator. आज ये सारे very easy to use tools हैं. इनको आप use करिए और अपना sales को बढ़ाइए, but आपको बढ़ाने की जरूरत नहीं है. So the times when we started our careers, I mean, ERP systems used to cost a bomb. Now they are on SaaS platform. You can pay as you go. So this is a very important point. Use of technology for growth. Otherwise, you will be one among the lakhs who are there in the platform but not able to sell. Sorry, Aqib, I think I kind of intervened in between, please.
Oh, that was very, very true. In fact, I think this was, what I say, the companies have already started, adopting the technologies now, the tech-enabled platform. I think one way I can say that the pandemic was a blessing in disguise, one way. A lot of companies have started adopting. Great. So I'll move on to Mr. Aqib now that, Powerhouse 91 being instrumental in fast-tracking the growth of the brands. Mr. Aqib, what do you think, what's the most common mistake the brand owners often do, ending up, making while doing their inventory planning?
Okay, so Mayur, I would just want to sort of add on to what Pakar and Yash said, because that is such an exciting topic as well. And then I also, in having these conversations with a lot of sellers, it has helped us sort of empathize better, because while it may seem to us like this is a straightforward solution with a no-brainer, basically, the challenge is that we have seen a lot of sellers face is they have very, very strong business acumen. In fact, like we have learned a lot talking to a lot of these sellers, but in general, it's just they have to put themselves out of their comfort zone in order to be really familiar with technology. A lot of sellers end up thinking that this is something meant for big startups, venture funded firms, that they can set up their own development teams, hire software engineers, and do things like that. But technology today has really become a commodity, and all of these solutions like Unicommerce, Nimbus Post, etc. exist, wherein you can just plug and play, and you only have to pay as a service. Not really, you don't have to incur the entire cost of setting up the infrastructure from scratch.
Right.
So that's one thing, and yeah, I can't stress this enough that technology is the way to go, especially if you're operating on e-commerce. Doesn't matter the scale. Even as a small brand, the insights, the data that you have access to can really help in growing faster. On a similar note, coming specifically to the question of inventory planning, again, technology is something that can really help you. In fact, not trying to sort of put in an advertisement here, but solutions like Unicommerce have done the job really, really easy for sellers. Otherwise, it's impossible to sort of keep track of the inventory, the growth, etc. in a traditional way. We've seen sellers who are still maintaining hard copy registers and trying to sort of maintain the track of their POs. It's virtually impossible to do so. Beyond, if you're running a shop, maybe that's good enough. But if you're trying to build an e-commerce brand, that's definitely not sustainable. And one of the most common things, and one of the biggest realizations that I've also felt in my own journey of running a brand, is inventory planning is not a back-end or supply chain job alone. There has to be a confluence of both the demand side and the supply side in making sure that you never go out of stock, that you're always playing on optimum inventory, you never overpay as well, you don't have inventory lying dormant in warehouses. At the same time, you never go out of stock, because that is probably the single biggest setback that your brand can experience online. So one of the things that I would really want to sort of stress upon is, whenever you're doing inventory planning, always plan in sync with the entire business. Have both the demand people, the supply people sit together, have all of the marketing plans in sync with however your purchase plans are lining up to be, and make sure that all of the things move together. It's not like you can have a different trajectory for marketing. You'd suddenly start spending a lot and you haven't planned accordingly for the inventory part, and then you go out of stock. At the same time, besides Unicommerce as well, there are so many different solutions that help you take care of the demand projection part. Even Amazon has a very basic tool that's super helpful in being able to plan what is the current run rate on the inventory, what is the projected run rate, how much buffer stock that you should be keeping. In fact, like one of the safeguards and internal processes that we follow with all our brands is we keep a minimum buffer stock in terms of amount of weeks rather than inventory. So we have this thing in mind that we should always have at least 2 weeks worth of goods rather than having a fixed amount, so that is sort of a dynamic thing and you keep on planning and improvising every week. So that really helps you, avoid a situation where you are out of stock.
Fantastic. I think this would really help these budding sellers to plan their, the growth. Great.
Mayur, if I may just come in, right? I think Aqib
sure.
Fantastic points there, right? I mean, so let me just give you some real life examples of what happens when sellers get it wrong. And this is like not even the smaller sellers, right? These are like proper venture-backed sellers, right? So when they're making sales, the biggest mistake that they do is if they don't use tools, everything is on Excel sheets, right? And no lender takes a call on Excel sheets, right? Because ultimately you could put whatever number you want in there. How do I know that the number is genuine, right? So it is very important for me that the data comes from platforms, and that's why as Finovate Capital, we've taken a call saying that we're going to stay away from direct seller finance unless you're coming from a platform. Now, specifically in this case, now there was this particular seller who was selling across one of the largest three, right? I will not name the specifics, but specifically they and their product was hotcake, right? It was going off the shelf, but then they just had so much of credit notes, and money was not coming back into the account, right? And then they couldn't differentiate between how much of the credit notes were for actual returns, and they said they had no returns, and how much of the credit notes were for marketing. And they couldn't kind of explain that piece to us, right? And because of that, they couldn't get funding. Otherwise, a couple of crores was there for the taking. And that's what people are dealing with. And these are like organized sellers who understand what they do. So you can imagine what happens to normal sellers, right? So it's very important that you start digitizing your transfer standpoint, so that once we start partnering with
So Aljo, we lost you actually.
There are some bandwidth issues at Aljo's end. Yeah, it's all right now.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Was I audible?
I think there was a latency. I think we missed the last few sentences from your end.
Perfect. So just to kind of rephrase that, so specifically the most important thing is start digitizing your transactions with these platforms. Players like us will start co-creating or identifying cohorts of borrowers that are lendable, right? Because not everyone is lendable with these platforms. And once you're eligible, you will get an alert from these platforms. And that is your best way to get working capital, right? If you try and approach lenders on your own, no one's going to entertain you, right? And because your ticket sizes are quite small. Correct. And so, but that's not possible unless you start using platforms and start digitizing your transactions. So that's my 2 cents, just adding to what Aqib said.
I think there are so many funds coming up which are looking at putting money into early stage or growth stage companies which are largely digital. And the reason that, I come from a M&A background where we used to kind of sift through large data and do audits and whatever else. But now with online first companies, the benefit and the data is just there. Everything is digital. So if you're not using that medium, we're not leveraging the power of the online media. I'm just to kind of digress a bit, adding to Aqib's point on inventory. So yesterday I was with on a separate panel with PC Mustafa. I don't know how many of you know him, but he's he's the founder of ID. And he was telling a very story about how IT changed his entire inventory planning. So worth a mention here. So he said that in 2003-04, when he started the business, and he's into a fresh business where dump and waste could be huge. He said my 25% of my products used to get wasted because we didn't have a demand planning and inventory which is matching demand. Today, he has 10 years plus of data for every store, every transaction that happens in each of those stores. So what is sold 10 years back, he can tell you today. And because of that, he has been able to reduce the 25% wastage to 2% wastage today. And that's the make or break for a category which is very competitive. So, the same metrics are true for all businesses. If you are not able to match your inventory with your supply and your demand and supply are not matching, either you are losing business or you are sitting on high inventory and paying the cost of that. And in many categories like apparel, food, inventory is perishable beyond a point. Fashion is perishable. Goods are. So extremely good point that Aqib brought up, that inventory has to match with your supply, and without that, businesses won't be able to make profit.
Very, very true. Completely agree with you. So I'll move on to Mr. Yash. So Mr. Yash, as per you, what are the key order fulfillment tips that helps in scaling up the e-commerce business?
Sure, Mike. So it's while connecting, it's very much connecting to inventory. So we've been discussing about inventory part. So now the trend, what we see, we work with a lot of D2C smaller brands as well as some of the bigger enterprise brands. Now the trends, what we see is everybody is looking to decentralize inventory now. So it's gonna be a trend. Everybody's following the trend. Everybody want to offer a 2-day delivery or like something like the Amazon like experience and those experience. All the brands is running towards it, and slowly the future seems to be that all D2C brands and every e-commerce brand will be focusing on that. So surely if I talk about the future of inventory, the future of fulfillment, it's going to be decentralized fulfillment. And what are the solutions? There are some solutions who have been, so few of our competitors into the space, or like few of the logistics partners have started up a big warehousing operations and big warehouses things. But even down the line, people have started adopting it. But now people need the future seems to be that people need smaller warehouses within cities. Those could be like dark warehouses. Those could be, let's say I am a seller. I have been buying something from Sadar. I need a small warehouse near Sadar where I can store it and I can ship it next day or next to next day. As a seller, people need. We work with a lot of FMCG brands. If I take an example, we have a brand called Jimmy's Cocktail that's into like cocktail delivery, and their brand is something like if somebody is ordering over the weekend, and if the customer didn't get the cocktails, getting a cocktail on a Monday is of no use, because like you already enjoyed your evening without a cocktail. Nobody's gonna take that cocktails up. So all those FMCG brands are going towards the way where they need a instant delivery and a quicker delivery. So in this case, like the solution, what the future of the inventory is going to be is like smaller dark warehouses. We've been even working with few of the biggest brand to open 300 or 350 plus smaller warehouses on different cities. Like if I talk about distribution, it's like a small warehouse in South Delhi, a one in North Delhi, a one in East Delhi, a one in Gurgaon, a one in Noida, and connecting this to the hyperlocal services. So it's something, the experience, what I could see is like what every brand is looking up, order comes up, it maps out to the right warehousing, wherever the inventory is, and it maps out to the right hyperlocal partner. And after order, it's like it's from it, the transit time is going to reduce from 2 days to 2 hour or 3 hour delivery. That is a vision I see, like all brands are moving towards, whole businesses are moving towards. That is something like the whole technology stacks we are even building up for certain brands. So decentralized inventory is something like what could be decentralized smaller dark warehouses, connecting it with hyperlocal is something what's going to be happening and going ahead down the line. So while we are discussing about the inventory, so one of the challenge people face is as many warehouses you increase, the chance of when you decentralize your inventory goes, the volume goes high. If you are buying one, keeping let's say 100 quantity at one place, now you have 100 places and you need to keep a defined quantity at every place, and need to make sure that all places have the right stock basically. So like they need to be people need to build up and invest systems where they have a auto replenishment. So once if let's say there's a 50-piece stock at South Delhi, and if it got reach out to 10, there should be a master warehouse from where those the 40 pieces should come out and refill those warehouses. So there need to be this can be done with technology and automation, where the whole decentralization and supporting this decentralization need to be automated, and this could be happen with technology and with operations down the line.
Great.
So just wanted to add a couple of cents. Sorry to interject, Mayur. Just
no issues.
Sharing, our own experience, and in fact, like how Yash so aptly put that this is the future. Even we as a D2C brand, could say this, that we have to actually do this. And one of the biggest pressures that you have to face when you are operating as a D2C brand is in terms of customer expectations and experience. You're directly competing with Amazon. So Amazon, consider it like Amazon has spoiled the customer's habit. If they are purchasing something on Amazon and they expect that Amazon will deliver it in a couple of days, or maybe even a day, they expect the same kind of experience when they're buying from your own direct to consumer channel as well. And in that sense, it matters a lot that you're able to, at least, if not again, that's a benchmark to really chase, because that's a very high benchmark and it may not be possible to do so. But solutions like decentralizing your inventory, offering much lesser shipping times, goes a long way in helping enable that. And that's really not an option anymore, that you can afford to offer 7-8 day delivery time and still be able to sort of compete with Amazon, for example.
Completely. I think
Aqib, I would like to take a bit of I won't say a contrarian view, but a constrained view here. So if you look at categories like apparel, now you work on size sets. Now for somebody to have multi warehousing is very difficult, because you only, generally a lot of these categories operate on width rather than on depth. So you make, let's say as a startup, you make only 40-50 pieces of each, and which means that you actually have 5 size sets. Now you cannot have, so I'm saying, well, you're right, but I think these are also calls which are very category specific. So if you are in a category like personal care and cosmetics, where the same product hai wo aap har jagah rakh sakte ho, then you could have actually a multiple thing. But when you are in categories where there are issues of cut sizes like apparel, footwear and all of that, then you also need to look at it. The second is, and I gave a thumb rule to a lot of people who might be new. Every time you increase a warehouse, your inventory increases by root 2 times. So if you are going from 1 warehouse to 2, your inventory will become 1.21. If you're going from 1 warehouse to 4, your inventory will become root 4, which is twice. So now if you imagine, if you are in 10 warehouses, your inventory is actually 3.5-4 times of the original inventory. And imagine a player who imagine categories where the product is perishable. Again, I say again, fashion is perishable. Footwear is perishable because the fashion goes out. आपने इतनी inventory रख दी, फिर उसके बाद आप बेच नहीं पाए, तो then it could be I mean, you need to. So I just say that you need to look at it by category, and while it is very important to deliver on time, one will have to look at from a customer experience versus the commercial and the sense versus the cost of losing out on your your inventory going obsolete. So I mean, I think it's a mix that you should look at. So that's
completely agree. Yeah, completely agree. I think the end goal is to sort of see how, Amazon for us is internally as well is really the benchmark of customer experience. And I think for any world over, any consumer company. So the idea is to, see how you can financially, in a financially feasible way, reach that sort of, customer experience for your own channel as well.
So my understanding and general based on the brands that you manage, if you are available in 4 to 6 warehouses across the country on an Amazon platform, so FBA, if you are on, let's say 6-7 places, I think you can deliver any part of the country within a single day. And that's the most important metrics today for Amazon, that can it do 24 hours kind of a delivery. I mean, if they're wanting to move to a platform where they can do a same day delivery if possible, but right from there to any number of platforms, depending on your cost and your sales velocity and so on.
I would request the audiences, now I've been seeing a lot of responses. I would request the audiences to put up their questions on the Q&A now that we have another 15 minutes left. My next question is to Mr. Aljo. Now that we're talking about, we've been hearing about the embedded finance. If you could just brief about the embedded finance and how this embedded finance can enable the retail tech platform to grow their revenues and stickiness on the platform.
So I think that's a great question, and just so it touches upon parts of what I've covered earlier as well, right? Ultimately, it's all about digital ledgers to the extent possible. One is, complete visibility on the transaction going through at every stage, complete visibility on money coming back and returns and everything else in the entire mix. And if you've got that kind of visibility, now the stakeholders associated with you as a platform, be it a customer or be it a supplier, or it could also be any other provider or service provider that you have, as long as you've got data about them, they suddenly become financeable. Now, when they become financeable, now you can take a call, who are the most valuable sets for you, right? You don't have to finance the entire universe. And I think the mistakes people have made earlier have been when they've gone out there to finance the entire universe, saying that I've got to create a great customer experience. What you've got to do is basically pick the guys who contribute the highest to your revenues, and basically ensure that there is money that they can utilize only with you. And that is what you start building. And because of that, then you create the kind of stickiness that will make it very difficult for them to kind of move away from you as time goes on. I hope that helps and that provides some context and color.
Yes. Coming back to Mr. Bakar, so there are a lot of questions about this echoes, the advertising cost of sale, So how one can increase their profitability by reducing this advertising cost of sale? So for audiences, echoes is nothing but it's a metric which can show on how much you have invested on and versus the sales you have received on the product. So Mr. Bakar, your input on this?
So I would firstly say ACOS is a good metrics to look at, but look at ACOS, which is total ACOS, which is total amount of advertising versus total sales, because advertising may not just generate inorganic sales, but sometimes people look at advertising, they don't buy it then. So your advertising also increases your organic sale to a certain point. Coming back to your question, how do you decrease your ACOS? I think firstly, as I started saying, there has to be a certain ACOS built into your economic model, and then once you are looking at your ACOS, don't look at ACOS at a gross level. Look at it at the lowest level, which is at a campaign level, at an ASIN level, rather than saying, okay, my total ACOS is this. You will only be able to improve upon when you look at it is at ASIN by ASIN. Few quick tips I would say is that one, analyze your conversion ratios and accordingly calibrate your CPCs. Two, evaluate again why you need to spend on very high cost, very high CPC kind of keywords and SKUs. And thirdly, if possible, use tools like which can help you do dynamic bidding. If you can't, then look at advertising data at a much more frequent level. So I see a lot of sellers who only look at their advertising campaigns and what is the cost they are incurring on a weekly basis. Obviously, a lot in a marketplace as dynamic as an Amazon or a Flipkart, everything is changing every second. So if you're taking a call only after a week, then you are losing out. So take a call daily, if not every minute, which automated tool can do. So I think that would be my 2 or 3 recommendations.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the input. Mr. Yash, there's a question for you that, how to expand this business category from driving growth at a large level, that is from, the niche segment to a larger market.
Sure, Mayur. See, one of the trend, if we see into the D2C spaces, like a lot of brands starts or ideate with certain product or a certain category. So let's say certain brands start with ethnic wear or into one category, and slowly, while you are scaling up into a category, you need to look what you can do to expand your business, basically. So even if I tell you about our experience, we start with a simple aggregation platform. Initially, we started into aggregation. Slowly, we moved into enterprise tech. Now we're moving towards certain global products. So, if I talk about the D2C space, as a business, everybody need to look what are the different competitors or people have been doing up. There are a lot of brands who start with ethnic and slowly have moved towards cosmetics and have added a new niche or new category into their business. So while somebody's been scaling up or hustling up into their category, they should be I believe they should be looking out what else could be added into the category, into the product line, and that could be help them to scale vertically. One is they have been scaling into their category. Second is pick up a cross category products, what could be done into similar niches and to scale up the volume accordingly.
Great. I think the request is to have some conversation in Hindi. So I think we'll do some English conversation. So the question is to Mr. Aqib. The question is how can an SMB leverage the technology to create operational efficiency without investing a significant amount of capital? SMB के लिए कैसे कर सकते हैं? वो कैसे इसको
leverage कर सकते हैं? जैसे हमने कुछ एक्सटेंट तक ये ऑलरेडी टॉपिक कवर कर लिया है अपने कॉन्वर्सेशन में. फॉर एग्जांपल लाइक यश नोटेड एंड इवन बकर माई सेल्फ कि बाय टेक्नोलॉजी यू डोंट हैव टू नेसेसरली सेट अ टीम ऑफ 5 आप सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलपर्स महंगे सैलरी पे हायर करो और उनको बोलो कि आप कोड बना के अपना स्टैक बनाओ. टेक्नोलॉजी का मतलब ये है कि एंड ये ब्यूटी है ई कॉमर्स की दैट आपके पास सारे डेटा का एक्सेस है. ऑल द प्लेटफॉर्म्स दैट यू ऑपरेट ऑन, फॉर एग्जांपल अमेज़न आपको सारे रिपोर्ट्स देता है, सारी उसकी एपीआईज हैं, उस पर इतने सारे सॉल्यूशंस बिल्ट हैं लाइक इवन यूनिकॉमर्स, निम्बस पोस्ट एक्सेट्रा, कि आप इन सर्विसेज को यूज करके अपना बैकएंड आसान कर सकते हो और अल्टीमेटली आप कॉस्ट सेव कर सकते हो. मतलब आपको लेट्स से 50-60 हज़ार का कोई हायर करना पड़ेगा पर्सन, आप उसकी जगह हो सकता है कि आप 10,000 में उससे डबल काम करवा रहे हो बिकॉज ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी. तो एसएमबी के लिए ये सारी सर्विसेज लाइक यूनिकॉमर्स, इवन ग्रोथ में जो टूल्स हैं काफी सारे, फॉर एग्जांपल हीलियम 10 हो गए, जंगल स्काउट हो गए, इवन अकाउंटिंग में आई एम श्योर आई थिंक अकाउंटिंग इज अ लॉट मोर प्रोग्रेस्ड एरिया फ्रॉम व्हाट वी हैव सीन टॉकिंग टू सेलर्स, बट स्टिल आप ये कर सकते हो कि आपका सारा का सारा P&L ही डिजिटल फॉर्मेट में रियल टाइम में मंथ ऑन मंथ आपको मिल रहा है बिकॉज सारा डेटा आपके पास अवेलेबल है थ्रू ऑल द डिफरेंट APIs, थ्रू ऑल द डिफरेंट प्लेटफॉर्म्स, एंड इतने सारे इस पे सर्विसेज बनी हुई हैं, आप इनको यूज करके अपनी मार्केटिंग एफिशिएंट कर सकते हो. फॉर एग्जांपल बकर टच अ पॉइंट अबाउट मार्केटिंग ऑटोमेशन, तो ये काफी सस्ते टूल्स हैं कि आप $10-20 अ मंथ की सब्सक्रिप्शन ले सकते हो और आपको उससे रादर देन मतलब खुद से रोज देखना, आपको काफी कुछ हैसल आपकी कम हो जाएगी. आपको खुद ही मार्केटिंग बिट्स एडजस्ट होते रहेंगी ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ टारगेट्स दैट यू हैव सेट. फॉर एग्जांपल ऐसे ही इन्वेंटरी प्लानिंग में आप ये सोचिए कि कॉस्ट ऑफ गोइंग आउट ऑफ स्टॉक is much greater than cost of investing in a solution that helps you remain in stock throughout the year. आप हो सकता है कि आपका revenue almost double भी हो जाए. In fact, this is one of the most common problems that we have seen across all the brands. कि at least in fact Prime Day के बाद तो सबका out of stock हो ही जाता है क्योंकि पता होता है कि double होने वाला है sale, but फिर भी it's just infeasible to actually plan it on sheets. तो ये solutions आप यूज करें, मतलब काफी सारे सब्सक्रिप्शन मंथ के बेसिस पे आपको बस पे करना होता है, उतना इतना ज्यादा बड़ा कॉस्ट नहीं होता है, और थिंक ऑफ दिस एज अ कॉस्ट सेव्ड रादर देन एक एडिशनल इन्वेस्टमेंट, क्योंकि आप काफी मैनुअल एफर्ट पे सेव कर रहे होगे इन सब चीजों को करके.
So I just want to add to what Aqib is saying. So when we started Upriver a few years back, and obviously for most brands there was no history. So Prime Day came, and for a seller that we were selling, let's say ₹1 lakh a day, suddenly in Prime Day we were selling 5 lakhs a day. और जो 5 दिन का प्राइम डे की हमारी इन्वेंट्री थी, वो हमने सोची थी कि हमारी इन्वेंट्री 5 दिन में होगी, वो 2 दिन में खत्म हो गई. नाउ हैड वी गॉट सम काइंड ऑफ डेटा, हैड वी यूज्ड सम काइंड ऑफ टूल्स बैक देन हमारी सेल मच 2-3 गुनी हो गई होती जितनी हम जिससे पहले हम स्टॉक आउट हो गए. सो वेरी राइटली सेड, सी सम ऑफ दीज टूल्स आर सो चीप टुडे, एंड इवन आई फॉरगेट बीइंग चीप. Even if they are expensive tools, I can assure you the cost and benefit that you will reap out of those tools will be much higher than what you would buy not using those. तो आप even 10-15-20 हजार रुपए महीना कोई आपसे ले रहा है, बट अगर आप उसकी वैल्यू उसमें आप 5 लाख रुपए महीने के निकाल सकते हैं, that's what business decisions are. So I think use of tools and technology is very important. Otherwise you won't be able to sell. I think as I earlier also said, the difference between the few thousand, 4,000-5,000 sellers who do more than a crore versus the 9 lakh sellers who sell in very small quantities is the use of these detailed tools.
Yeah. And एक चीज मयूर ये होता है important कि इसमें आपका फिक्स बहुत बड़ा इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं है. आप एक बार ट्राई करके देखो. मोस्ट ऑफ दीज हैव मॉडल्स ऑफ मंथली सब्सक्रिप्शन. आप एक बार मंथ का इन्वेस्टमेंट करो, ज्यादा से ज्यादा 10,000 होगा. मान लो कि आपको वैल्यू नहीं भी मिला, आपको एक लर्निंग मिल गई. ऐसा नहीं है कि आपको 1-2 लाख इन्वेस्टमेंट करना पड़ेगा in order to even just validate कि ये मेरे लिए काम कर सकता है कि नहीं.
Just to add again, a lot of these are free for the first month, so try it out.
Yes, we have seen वो नए अकाउंट बनाते रहते हैं लोग.
हाँ, बिल्कुल. But I would just add another point here. See, getting a good car is equally important, but you also need to have a good driver.
Right.
I mean,
yes,
just having a software is not good enough. You need to have people who put time and effort to understand how the software works. मैं अक्सर ये कहता हूँ कि अगर आपको अपना डेस्टिनेशन नहीं पता तो आप किसी भी नंबर की बस में बैठोगे, आप गलत ही जगह पहुंचोगे. तो वही वाली बात है, अगर आपको टूल को यूज करना नहीं आता और आप उसमें टाइम नहीं इन्वेस्ट करते हो, तो फिर टूल को लेके भी कोई बेनिफिट नहीं. अदरवाइज आप you will say the tool doesn't work. The point is that you will have to understand very intrinsically how each tool works, what are the limitations of the tool, and use it to your benefit and take it forward.
Yeah, now that we're talking about purchasing a car, I think a lot of festivals around the corner, a few months away, be it Ganpati or Diwali. My question is to Mr. Aljo. Now that these festivals are just a few months away, are these e-commerce platforms eagerly looking towards having a financial solutions for their merchant partners and brands?
So clearly, I mean, I think we all know the numbers, right? I mean, the Diwali sales have gone up from say close to 200 million back in 2014 to about 6.5 million now, right? I mean, and you're talking about 75% of the sales happening in week 1. And if that is the numbers you're talking about, almost everyone needs capital, right, to do some kind of business. And imagine the sort of impact it has on inventory, logistics, all of it together. So clearly there is a huge demand from the perspective of providing credit. But I think the problem for us is not demand, right? The problem is providing the right kind of credit because it's important. Not like I said earlier, not everyone is financeable. So it's only in certain partnership contexts where the data is available that we are able to kind of support. But so like for instance, if somebody reaches out to us from an open market context, we will not be able to support them very clearly. But yes, I mean, no dearth for demand for credit in India. Yeah.
Very true.
The credit gap for SMEs in India is between 6 lakh crores and 9 lakh crores, and bulk of it comes up during Diwali. And with e-commerce being just about 9 to 10% of the overall demand, you can imagine what that number is, right? So clearly, no dearth for demand.
Completely agree.
So Aljo, I have a question for you.
Sure, Baba.
Aljo, I have a question for you. So many of these platforms like Amazon themselves have started financing services. So how do you differentiate with those platforms? I mean, everybody understands, for example, if Amazon, somebody is a seller on Amazon is selling more, both Amazon as well as the seller stand to gain. So Amazon itself is now providing MSME and SME credit. So how do you differentiate there?
So first of all, the credit on Amazon is post sale, right, in a certain way. So in our case, what we want to do, and clearly what we do is we embed ourselves with the platform itself. So Amazon is just one of the platforms, right? I mean,
sure.
There are the logistics providers in between. There are aggregators like Unicommerce, so on and so forth. So we partner upstream, right? Amazon is more downstream. The other thing that we do is we do not insist that the SMEs need to come to our platform and it is about the data for us. None of that, right? I mean, the whole idea is we've got a very limited context. The whole idea is, can I facilitate financing for you or not, and what are the products that I can do? So Amazon typically does just post-shipment finance.
Sure.
We, over a period of time, can create various combinations, right? Like for instance, on Nimbus Post, instead of putting money in a prepaid wallet or having a certain cadence to it, we can give a credit limit out there. And that credit limit will be used only in context of paying Nimbus Post, right? Now I can keep increasing that limit so that the business that Yash keeps getting from that seller keeps going up, right? Because that credit is not available to the seller on any other platform. So, or even from a warehousing standpoint, right? Ritiman was here earlier, from a picker standpoint. If we create those kind of unique credit limits, that helps. Now, what's helpful for me is if there are platforms like Unicommerce that provide an end-to-end view, because maybe one platform by itself does not provide me the comfort to kind of do the sort of credit structures that I need to do. But once I'm able to do that, I'm able to develop a history, right? Then I can even do pre-shipment financing, which basically says over a period of time, I know for a fact that there is this transaction volume, which I'm privy to. I know there is a certain amount of money that keeps coming in. Now, using this cash flow and transaction flow, now I can create various kind of products to even help him source, right? And not just on a post-shipment basis. I think that's the delta that we bring to the entire financial universe. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, this is really helpful to differentiate, Finovate compared to other players in the market. I think this helps the questions from the audience as well. So let me quickly take up some questions from the audiences. There's a question from Mr. Abhishek Bandari. I think Mr. Bakar or Aqib, any one of you can answer. The question is, we are a 3-year-old grocery brand so far selling with Flipkart and Amazon. We're now launching our website for D2C. Can we know how do we determine the budget for marketplace marketing our website? Or also, what are the tools?
Aqib, you want to take that?
Sure. So again, like what I can share my perspective on, just sort of a disclaimer here, we haven't done any transactions or personally operated any grocery related brands. But at the same time, there are some common principles that apply to any e-commerce brand trying to grow. And one of the first things that they need to make sure, even say before planning a big marketing budget or something, like Bakar previously said, having a dry run with the entire D2C channel itself, so that they make sure that every penny that they spend, it's not lost and leaked because of a simple inefficiency. Now, starting with how to plan their marketing on their D2C channel. Not sure from the context if they already have, say, some direct database of the customers themselves. But typically, especially the D2C market around Facebook, Instagram, it really starts giving you results when you have access to a lot of data with respect to, purchase pattern and who the customers are, who is actually, say, visiting your website and dropping off, who is visiting a particular product page, and who is finally purchasing as well. So firstly, make sure that if you have the data, create custom audiences, lookalike audiences on Facebook, and start marketing on that. And typically how we started, again, like it's a very broad question. You can't have a one size fit all approach to this marketing budget. I'm not sure about the entire size of his brand, for example. But just to give you a context about Aza, for example, when we started as a bootstrapped brand 3 years ago, we started with a very nominal budget of around 2,500 per day and ran some Facebook ads on that. The important thing when you are especially starting out is to really improvise and monitor constantly and sort of change things constantly. So as soon as, for example, they launch their website, they can start with a small enough budget. One of the key things in Facebook is you need to have certain enough minimum amount of expenditure to be able to go through the learning period. which typically happens after you have covered, say, at least 50 events, be either of purchase or add to cart. So make it a minimum expenditure around at least 2 to 3,000. And again, it totally varies on business to business and your average order value. But spend enough so that Facebook can actually learn, iterate, and start optimizing your campaigns. The important thing to keep in mind when you're starting out is to just give Facebook enough data to actually optimize your campaigns. So don't be so frugal that you aren't spending it and it's taking forever to actually, Facebook is taking forever to find the right set of people for you. And don't spend so much that you end up spending inefficiently on audiences that may not be the right people, for example, for your business. So it's not a very golden number that can apply on any business, but these are the things you can philosophically at least keep in mind when deciding your marketing campaigns.
Thank you. I think there is another specific question to Nimbus post, Mr. Yash. Thoughts on cost incurred for the use of technology for new sellers? Any thoughts on cost incurred for the use of technology?
Sure. So this question, this have been already covered by Aqib in the past. Like, see, in terms of cost, like as we have already covered up 2-3 times. Now it's not a trend where you need to set up a whole team or a tech team to set up your business. In the Indian e-commerce ecosystem have been developed so much for any segment. If you say, whether it's you say a marketing automation, whether you say the paid PPC campaigns, whether you say remarketing, whether you see omnichannel, whether you say the customer support, there have been SaaS tools available for almost everything or anything. And all these tools are being, one is there are global tools who are being like good to plug with Shopify and certain things. There have been a lot of Indian tools even coming up, like who are specifically for Indian markets and who enable the COD transaction and who are built for Indian merchants, you could say. So now, like the cost of a technology is there's no as such a heavy cost or heavy duty cost to set up a technology. What you need to do is you need to choose up a right tool and club up the subscription cost. And according to your volume, let's say you have been at a very, very early stage. So you should be looking for a very basic plans of all different tech part solutions. There is different like plans or different pricing as you scale basically. So the cost of a tech is nothing. It's all about a few dollars of a subscription on a monthly basis. And like that depends on what the point matters is choosing right tool, right tech at right stack at every position is very important in this case.
Thank you. I'll take a few more questions. I think the interest of time, I think we have 2 more minutes left. Last question to Mr. Bakar. How to increase sales on Myntra through marketing?
So again, so Myntra uses both the banner ads as well as now going on pay-per-click kind of thing. So first of all, create ads which are targeted to your audience. You'll need to understand who your core audience on any platform is, why just Myntra, and create products and create ads which are targeted to that audience. And I'm sure you'll get your desired results. There is, I think the answers are all the same. I think the difference, so I look at the entire ecosystem in 2 kinds of platforms. One like Amazon, which give you a lot of data points, and hence you can do a lot of automation and data-driven decision making. And then there are platforms which do not give you data. For example, Myntra, the level of data, the amount of data that you get is very limited. There, I think a lot of things happen by your interaction with the category teams, understanding and collaborating with them on who your customer is, what is working, what is not working. And there's some bit of a trial and error, because they don't give you the direct control or AMS kind of a platform where you can kind of create your own dish kind of a thing. So I think talk to your category managers, understand who's buying your product, what is relevant to those customers, and take a call.
Great. I think Anubhav, we have almost, I think it's 1:06. So I think we have a lot of questions. We don't want to have these questions unanswered, but I think we can definitely share this. Thank you all for sharing your inputs, your experiences, and sharing the best practices with all the audiences. Now we can move on to the next session. So I'll Anubhav, over to you.
Thanks, Mayur. Thanks, Aqib.
Thank you, everyone.
Yash,
Thank you so much.
Aljo.
Thank you.
This is exactly what I love about these sessions, that we talk about the very intricate problems and the very roots of the problems. And having said that, now after being these problems being the insights being given by the domain experts, I'd like to invite in one of the brands who won the market by their own, let's say, products, and that's Go Mechanic. We have Amit Bhasin today from Go Mechanic to express his insights on the very topics that we were discussing today and address the attendees on their very pain points. And for this session, I have our very dear colleague, Mr. Prateek.
Hello. Hi, everyone. How are you? Thank you for attending this session. I will quickly just give an introduction. So I'm Prateek. I head the business operations at Unicommerce. Today we have amongst our brands Go Mechanic. I'll give a brief introduction about Go Mechanic. So Go Mechanic is India's leading multi-brand car service company. It's committed to making the car servicing experience hassle-free and easy for everybody. They have created technology solutions that have disrupted the entire unorganized auto servicing industry, making solutions more systematic, reliable, and cost-effective. The dedicated team has grown to a strong family of 600 plus folks across NCR, Mumbai, Pune, Hyderabad, you name it, they're there. And recently, they also started their global expansion strategy as well. So over here, to start with, I would like to welcome Amit. Amit Bhasin, the co-founder of Go Mechanic, who will talk about the scalable e-commerce workflows for budding seller strategy. Now, personally, it is a pleasure for me to take this session with Amit. Amit is an old friend, and we have known each other for more than 10 years since we did a postgrad together. First of all, Amit, thank you so much for coming, and congratulations on the recent funding round of $42 million. Great to see you here.
Thank you, Prateek. Always good to see you, an old friend.
So we can start. So Amit, let's start about a quick journey on how Go Mechanic has come across e-commerce. It started as auto parts, and how they have actually leveraged e-commerce and mingling and combining both offline and online so beautifully that you have your app, you have your service centers, you have e-commerce business which is growing in multiples every month. So I think that is a beautiful way to actually expand and use all the avenues that are available. If you can just give a discussion on that.
Sure. So Go Mechanic is is more than 5 years old now. We started in April 2016. It's been more than 5 years that we've begun the company, and we always started. Our belief always was that Indian auto aftermarket is at least 15-20 years behind, if not more, than some of the more developed ones all across the globe, right? And simply because the problems of trust, transparency, cost. And it's also such a black box category, right? That the end consumer understands so little about what really goes into their cars, that we thought that it's essentially a category which lends itself quite beautifully to internet, because you can just do so much in terms of educating the customer, solving the workflows, and essentially just standing for a brand that stands for quality, trust, and transparency, right? And that's essentially what we've been trying to build at Go Mechanic. We started off with our services route, which was solving the problem for repairs and maintenance for the end consumer. And currently we have almost 700 workshops across 32 cities across the entire country, which use our tech stack, wherein we are fast establishing ourselves as the go-to brand for out of warranty cars in the country, right? That led us to a lot of other opportunities as well, because then we started thinking about what else can we solve for the end consumer, right? And another no-brainer for us was the whole spare parts journey. So around three years back, we started the whole spare parts piece as well, wherein we were solving for the discoverability and last mile for and availability of right spare part, right price, right time for the end consumer as well. And then again, went back to the drawing board, and we were starting thinking, okay, what else can we do for the end consumer? And that's when we thought that even car accessories is as big a problem as some of the others that we've mentioned here, where the same problems of trust, transparency, and convenience are across the board. And we started Go Mechanic Accessories around 1.5 years back. And whatever that you see on the Unicommerce platform and e-commerce per se for us is a mixture of what we do on spares and accessories, right? So that's been the quick and dirty of what we built at Go Mechanic.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll take up a few questions where we have got and would be really interesting for us to answer. So amongst your audience, we have a lot of budding sellers who want to establish e-commerce businesses. So a few things that if you can name, what are the 3 important things that really help your brand, and you would like to suggest to all the budding sellers to establish their scalable e-commerce brand per se. And what have been the secrets where you've actually cracked e-commerce, where that has been a phenomenal journey?
Right. So I think the first one, which most of us should do, is do your research before you're launching anything on e-commerce, simply because the benefit of e-commerce is also the perils of e-commerce, that everything is just so transparent that you cannot get away with launching pretty much everything under the sun. Right. The beauty of e-commerce also is at the same time that there's just so much information to consume that you can create. You can always find the niche where customers would like a certain product at, and then continuously just relentlessly work on it. Right. So for us also, it was about finding that customer niche, both in terms of price as well as quality, and have that very solid balance of where you're not compromising any of the two, right? So that would be the first. Do your research before you're launching anything under the sun. Do your look at what your competitors are doing. Look at different white spaces, because anything, if it is just pure play product, right? The physical product I'm talking about, not the other sense of it, that can easily be replicated. What will really work in anybody's favor is really finding that niche and relentlessly working on it, and continuously creating a portfolio of different products which are very true to that brand essence that you're creating, right? So just a standalone product will not really work. You'll have to have the entire gamut of different products that stand for the same customer promise that you have that you are standing for. Second would be do not ignore the operations aspect of it. Do not ignore how difficult it can be to manage inventories. Do not ignore how difficult it can be to continuously ship a multitude of 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 products every day, right? So continuously invest on having the right systems, having the right partners, which will help you scale, because more often than not, you will find that the e-commerce demand will outstrip your procurement and your operations prowess, right? And this is something that we learned the hard way. Honestly, this was the first experience for us also at e-commerce, and figured out that once you have that product market fit, the limiting factor for scale actually turns out to be procurement and operations, and not the demand aspect of it, right? So the second would be do not ignore that. And the third is just continuously invest in your team, right? I think that just goes for not just any e-commerce brand, but per se anybody who wants to build a sizable business of worth. Just continuously invest in your team. More often than not, you'll face problems which will be quite unique to your brand, right? And sometimes all you need is motivated individuals that will go out and figure out a solution for you, right? No amount of sheer brain power will solve it, but just motivated people who would go out there, spend in the hours, and will solve it for you, right? So always value motivation and loyalty over sheer pedigree that some of are biased towards, right? So these will be my 3 big ones for anybody who wants to start off in e-commerce.
Okay, perfect. So I'll just quickly summarize. So one is a product market fit and finding a niche. The second one basically is focus on operations and procurement. These will be the strong factors that you have to grow in. And the third is invest in your team, trust your team, and let them build the way ahead.
Yeah.
Perfect. So the second question comes is that, like you also mentioned that while you are scaling, and this has been e-commerce's first foray for you guys. So if you can show or throw some light on any 3 mistakes that you feel that can be easily avoided by a budding entrepreneur looking to scale an e-commerce business?
So one would be, I think one of the mistakes that most of us fall in trap of is trying to fight the price war. I think that is something which is very easily avoidable. It's more a function of just being patient and persistent, right? And not get into that. It's very easy to fall in that trap, right? So one very big advice would be to not continuously just get into that price war aspect, and rather try to create that niche for yourself, right? Because there is something that you will stand for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line, and price cannot be that, because that is something that can be very easily replicated. So that would be one very big one. The second, not really a mistake, but more I think demand planning is a very important aspect, and most budding brands can face that kind of can run into that kind of a trouble, right? Because I think it's very important to understand where your peaks and troughs would lie, in terms of seasonality of your product, in terms of seasonality of e-commerce per se, right? So it's very important to plan in advance, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months into advance, and figure out that this is the amount of inventory, this is the amount of operations manpower, this is the amount of let's say stock that I would require because these peaks are something that you should really capitalize on, and pretty much and these peaks can be as high as that 3 or 4 of these peaks can pretty much create the entire year for you, right? So do not ignore those as well. I think these will be the 2 big ones, honestly, Pratik. There isn't really a third one, because most brands would have their own journey, right? And while the basics of e-commerce are similar for everyone, but there is a lot of hustle, there is a lot of continuous learning that everybody has to invest in. So my 2 cents would be around these 2 areas only.
Perfect. Thank you. So these are really, really helpful. So now just moving on to the next question. One is when you said that when you're talking about entrepreneurs, so like you in the early phases where you have been, where you used to make sure that 24/7 you're trying to build something. And I remember from those days itself, from a lot of people that we are our common friends, and when we used to discuss as well. So some things are really very core to becoming an entrepreneur, and this is something that comes at, if you can advise some tips to the entrepreneurs which they can implement to establish their mark in the e-commerce industry. I think a lot of it would be first principles, obviously, as an entrepreneur, but it would really help what are the tips that a person should actually look at to just make sure that things go and fall in place.
Right. So Pratik, one big one which has been a learning over the last 5 years plus has been that there is never a eureka moment. You would just it is a continuous toil and persistence that all of us will have to go through the grind on that one. So never even expect that the fortunes will change just over the next day, right? So continuously keep on being persistent, and for all you know, this whole persistence, nobody would even realize that, and it's very incremental, right? Most of these benefits that you accrue are very incremental and very and sometimes they're very non-tangible also, right? So one would be just keep at it, right, and be persistent towards it. Second is around the team. I could not underemphasize or overemphasize, whatever the word you want to put in here, but there is, I think what will really help people scale, or any budding entrepreneur scale, is having that band of folks who are ready to put in those extra hours, extra miles when going gets tough, and going will get tough more often than not, right? So that these are 2 very fundamental ones. These are also first principle in a way, but this is something that we learned the hard way. The third would be focus a lot on discipline and processes. And because these are something which may not give you returns in the short term, right? But these are the building blocks. It is impossible to scale up without the discipline of using the right systems, using the right processes, and building them, right? These processes may not be easily replicable across businesses, and you may have to figure out those which work best for your businesses. but creating those processes and relentlessly following them is what would really scale, right? So yeah, these three would be the big ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Persistence, I think, is something that a lot of people don't also look at, because what tends to happen when you're an entrepreneur, a normal week seems like at least a month, because the kind of time that you're spending at work, right? You realize that 2 days have just passed, but actually you feel that it might have actually been a week. कि इतना
और क्या
सारा
भी
time हो
vice
गया.
versa also, Pratik. I mean, there would be weeks where it will feel like a day. But yeah,
Absolutely.
and but that's the thing. I mean, you cannot get overawed by when it's going really fantastically, right? And you can, at the same time, you cannot really let your shoulders down when it's not going well, right? Just being at it is sometimes, just turning up is half the battle.
Absolutely. And obviously, the team, building the team and trusting them to actually build it, motivating them is very, very important, because I think the key thing, like you also said, is that whenever we are looking to hire or getting people on board, first thing is that obviously get motivated people, keep motivating them, and always hire people who are smarter than our own selves, that they are and trust them that they'll actually end up building this. So I think that is really something that I completely agree with you. That is, I think, one thing that definitely goes a very long way. And processes, I think nobody can underemphasize. I think scalability is not at all possible without processes. So that ways, processes go a very, very long way. When it might not be in a 1 month journey, but when you look at a 4, 5, 10-year journey, processes are the key difference that made you what they are.
Yep.
Great. So thank you so much, Amit. That was really, really helpful, and I'm sure that the advice that you gave will really help a lot of budding entrepreneurs. Do you have anything else?
Thank you so much, Pratik. And now just I think, again, persistent, a relentless plug of Go Mechanic. Please visit our website, gomechanic.in. All your automotive cares would be taken care of. Needs will be taken care of. So that's about it.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Amit.
Thank you. Cheers.